Welcome. Today, we're going to be discussing the quarantine option in Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud. Currently looking at our list of incidents, and you can see down below the option for the quarantine. Now, what is quarantine? It's going to be a special folder on the machine's hard drive that's isolated, and it's where suspicious or malicious files that are detected by the Acronis antivirus or anti-malware engines are placed to prevent further spread of those threats. Now, how might a file get into quarantine? I kind of alluded to that by being suspicious or malicious and detected by the anti-malware engine. But how does that get set up? If we go into the devices and look at the machines with agents, I'm going to quickly go into a protection plan and show you a couple of those settings. So we're going to add a new plan here. I'm going to create a protection plan. And we're going to go right into the anti-malware module. Give this a moment to load, collapse that, enable this, and expand the settings. Now, if you look down the list of settings here, you'll see a couple of them are default to quarantine, such as the behavior engine. When I click in here, if the behavior engine detects malware or malicious behavior, it's going to quarantine as the default action. You could also change this to stop the process or notify only, but the quarantine is going to do all of the above. In the real-time protection, it's going to do the same thing. On access scanning or on execution scanning, default action is quarantine. Here are the options to change that. You'll see the same with the scheduled scans for a quick and full scan, as well as a custom scan if you enabled that. The default action is quarantine and quarantine here. Now, you'll also see an option for adjusting the removal of quarantine files. So how are you handling that quarantine? Automatically removed quarantine files after 30 days. So this is one way that items can be automatically put into the quarantine. I'm going to close out of this, move over to the left, and go back down into the protection console with our list of incidents. I'm going to select one of these incidents and investigate. And from here, we're going to select one of these malicious items in the incident. And as a response action, I have the option to quarantine. So I can manually put any of these files into the quarantine as well. And if you're interested in where the quarantine is located, it is outlined in the documentation. It's obviously going to be slightly different for Windows, Mac, and Linux, but you're welcome to jump into the documentation and check that out. The quarantine is also protected by the self-protection within a protection plan, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, if we move over to the quarantine, you'll see that I do have one file in this quarantine. It's a PowerShell script. And if I select that, I have a couple of options here. I can add it to a whitelist if this was a false positive, and then restore it. Or I've got the option to delete the file. And you can see some of the details around that file. The device that it was on, the hash of the file, the path where that file was living on the system, and the protection plan that was assigned to that system that identified it. That's going to wrap things up for today's video on the quarantine with Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud. I hope it was helpful for you. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in a future video.